Alright, welcome to my compare and contrast of what I believe are the two greatest G-Shocks you can buy. The two negative display kings of G-Shock, that is the new GW-BX5600-1A1 versus the older GW-5000HS-1. I have to say before starting this contrast, this versus video, these are amazing watches. These are beautiful, they're relatively cheap. When it comes to watch world, they are just fantastic, both of them, and so I'm very pleased to review these today. Both of these, by the way, come in the classic G-Shock box. They have the exact same box, so I brought a box just to show you, but there's no real reason to unbox them because they both look the same there. But I'm happy to say, here are the two watches. Here is the older GW-5000HS-1 negative display, and here's the newer GW-BX5600-1A1 negative display. I have to say again, amazing, wonderful watches. They are that classic G-Shock set it and forget it kind of thing, where they're tough, they're super water resistant, you can wear them in the shower, you can wear them when you do dishes, you never even need to worry about them. You know, if you wear some mechanical watch, especially something vintage, even with good gaskets in it, you really shouldn't be wearing it in the shower, especially with a leather strap. But these are, I call them set it and forget it watches. They're just awesome. And you know, the creator of G-Shock made these specifically to be able to be worn and to be used hard and to be enjoyable. On top of that, if you're watching this video, you don't need me to tell you G-Shock watches are awesome, right? They just look beautiful. They've got that magic, that kind of a certain magic and joy to them that a lot of digital watches just do not have. It's like almost like Coca-Cola or Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. There's something, they just achieved something great with this thing that can be mass produced at the same time. And I believe that these two watches are exactly that way. These are, like I said, relatively affordable. The older 5000 has a steel case back, so it has slightly nicer materials, so it's going to be $330, I think. The new watch, and I'm not sure if it's available in the United States yet. I purchased it overseas in Japan. I'm going to post a link in the description if you want to purchase it there. It's just, you know, an affiliate link. If you want, you can buy it in that, and I get a little bit of a kickback for that. But it is $220, I think. I'm not sure if it's available in the United States yet, but you can buy it at websites like Chrono24 or these sort of things. On top of that, these are relatively the same size. The new 5600 is, let's say, a millimeter or two taller on the watch face than this watch, but they're pretty much the same thickness, and they're the same left to right size. So pretty much the same watch. They have the same 145 to 205 millimeter band size. They both have tough solar, multiband 6, and pretty much the same functions: stopwatches, timers, alarms, world times, these kind of things. So pretty much speaking, these are the exact same watch. But, and they're both gorgeous. They're both very pleasing to look at. I love to look at these watches and sort of like feel out which of these that I've spent a lot of time over the last week or so wearing these two watches to make this video today. So let's get into what I feel are the pros and cons of these two watches. I'm going to start with the newer watch, which is why probably many of you are here. The new watch is basically great for its new MIP display. That is a memory and pixel display. It's a newer technology than the LCD of the older watch. And it is remarkably legible, okay? The older watch display has, because it's an LCD, first of all, it's darker, it's harder to read than the newer watch, but on top of that, the older one has it's a little bit more recessed. So if you're looking at the watch from an angle, not only is the LCD harder to read, or sometimes it's even distorted, but actually can be a little bit of a shadow upon the digits. Versus this one is much closer to the face of the watch. There is no recessed distance between the outline of the digits and the actual bottom of the digits. So there's not any shadow within the number that the LCD version has. This is super clear. So not only is it a completely unified, it's a pixel display, but it's also very, very easy to read. This MIP display is a huge upgrade for the positive display, right? But for the negative display, it's a game changer. So if you are a negative display lover, this is definitely something you want to consider, because the negative display benefits huge from that MIP technology. So I will say the display is the main benefit of the newer BX5600-1A1. But there's also some benefits that go on top of that. Because it's a pixel display, the old version has to use a lot of abbreviations. So for instance, right now it is Wednesday, February 11th, and the new watch says WED for Wednesday. Pretty easy to see and read. The old watch just says WE. So it has a little bit more of an abbreviation. This isn't too bad with Wednesday, but for Friday is the worst. Friday on the new one says Fry. Pretty easy, in big huge FRI, or you can see now WED. But the old display says FR, and because it's an LCD that's using the same digits as a time display, it's going to say, it almost looks like FA. You have to sort of see that there's this little tail on the bottom of the R that kind of makes it look like an R, but not really. So there's basically, with the pixel display, it can spell out all this sort of stuff. And this is best seen in the fact that as opposed to this watch, which really doesn't have a lot of customizations for the default watch face, aside from being able to switch the month and the day. So you can, right now it's 2/11, I can switch it to 11/2, right? That's about the main customization of the 5000 HS. The new watch, you can actually change it to have a number of different displays. You can have what I believe is, what probably most people will use, unless they're world travelers, is just have the day, the date, and the time. But you can also click the button in the top left and change it to the day, spelled out fully, so I can actually read the word Wednesday in tiny little letters, with the date, with the year 2026. You can have another press will have that same date, Wednesday, with the date 2/11, and now in the little box in the top right, it shows the world time, which I have friends in England, so I have it set to London. It's their 2/11, and it's 4:30, and it even has a tiny little P for PM. I mean, remarkable. Because it's a pixel display, you can put tiny, tiny little words there. If I press it again, now I have both of my world times display. That's London at 4:31 and Amsterdam at 5:31. And again, it has little tiny P's next to these. So the ability to have a pixel display allows all this complexity and complication. I would say, generally speaking, this is more of a bell and whistle. Most people aren't going to use this because your watch display is only an inch or so tall, so it's really hard to read with a glance. And most people are not sitting there, putting their watch close to their face to look at the world times. They're going to be glancing at it from, a little bit of a distance like this, and they're not going to be able to see those little tiny world times in the upper right. They're probably just going to leave it on, like I have done with the day of the week. Super legible, awesome. Because it has a Bluetooth connection, there's all these benefits that the new watch and the new module, which is the 3578, can do over this older module, the 3495. One of the benefits it has is being able to set more cities for your world times. So for example, I have family and friends in the Netherlands. I have this set to Amsterdam, to the Netherlands. This watch has, the new watch has 300 cities you can set to through the Bluetooth and through the app. This older watch, because it doesn't have an app connection, only can do 48 cities. So even though I have friends and family in the Netherlands, I can't actually turn the older 3495 module to Amsterdam. I actually have to set it to Paris and then just know in my mind that France and the Netherlands have the same time zone. So it's a little bit extra work again. The new watch, I can set a lot more cities, and I don't have to sort of like cross-reference. I don't have to remember that Paris and France have the exact same time as Amsterdam and the Netherlands. I can just set it to the Amsterdam. That's really cool. On top of that, because of the steel case back, this older 5000 HS-1 negative display is 74 grams, and this newer BX5600-1A1 is really 51 grams. It's actually the older steel case back is 50% heavier. So the cool thing is you get the steel case back. The downside is it's a lot heavier, and so if you're somebody who's very sensitive to heavy watches on your wrist, you're just not going to enjoy the steel case back version as the new BX5600. Lighter is always better. Make it lighter is I think the phrase I've heard online. That's definitely the case with this new 5600. So Let's see what else. Oh yeah, the buttons are much easier. I wouldn't say much easier. Let's say they're easier to depress. So if I am clicking through the modes on the new one, great, you know, very functional. But if I'm clicking through the modes on the older one, still clickable, but it's about, let's say, 20%, 30% harder. Now maybe some people like that because they find themselves accidentally pressing their buttons on their watch as they're going throughout their day. I don't know, maybe you're working with your hands or something like that. That's not my case. I would much prefer the new watch with the easier to press buttons than the older watch. These buttons are a little more recessed. They're harder to press. They're a little more firmer. I think I read online even that the springs are more dense. And actually, I don't mind the density of the spring. I just wish the button was a little less recessed on the older watch than the big BX5600. Really nice, slightly more exposed buttons make them easier to press. I don't know if it's like because of, you know, the Asian population that usually purchases this watch or where they made this watch. I don't know, you know, but that's a nice feature. What else do we have? The alarm. So I'm going to put some B-roll footage in here. And I'm going to show that the new BX5600 has a much, again, I don't want to use the word much. It has a louder alarm and timer alarm and these sort of things than the older 5000. So here you go. So you can see that the newer watch is just louder. It's probably benefits from a little bit of technology upgrades. I don't know if they were able to take the exact same sounds and, you know, make them with the same power consumption or whatever, but it is a louder alarm, which is a nice benefit. This one, the new BX5600, doesn't only sync with a multiband 6 world time, but it also syncs through the Bluetooth on your phone. So if you enable auto update for the time on this watch and you have the app on your smartphone, it'll check on Bluetooth every single night after midnight, probably while you're sleeping, and automatically update the time on your watch, which is a really cool feature. The older 5000 HS-1, it just doesn't have a Bluetooth connection, so it only updates with the atomic clock. And if you are within reach of an atomic radio or atomic clock, whatever, that's great. But if you're outside of that, you really want that updated thing. And so the new BX5600 is a nice upgrade for you. I will say something I wish this new watch did, which it doesn't do, is I wish I could turn on the multiband 6 atomic radio feature and turn off the Bluetooth feature, because I don't want it, I don't have the app regularly installed on my phone, and I don't want it draining the battery every night by turning the Bluetooth on and off. So I kind of prefer, I don't like the battery drain this new watch, the newer watch has a little bit more. I wish it could be a little bit more fine-tuned. It just has an auto update feature where both the Bluetooth update and the multiband 6 update are connected, and I don't like that. So I wish that it was a little bit more sophisticated, but the cool thing is it allows a Bluetooth time synchronization, and that the older one just doesn't do that. This one allows you to set the font, right? You can set the indices or the digits of the clock to be the old LCD display. You can kind of mock an LCD display, whereas the old one, because it's LCD, it only has one way of looking at the numbers. And you can actually set this one also to a newer font for the letters, a newer display, readable type, and it's a lot easier to read. And I've actually got that set up on the watch full time. I think some people might like to mimic the LCD numbers, but I think that even though they are kind of a little cooler to look at, they're not as legible. So let's see what else. Both these watches, if you are in the dark and you turn them to your face, they automatically turn on the backlight. And because the newer watch has probably a faster processor in here, it's able to turn that on a little bit quicker, which is kind of cool. You don't have to wait a split second longer than you do with the older watch. And there's, I would say, one feature that the new BX5600-1A1 has over the older 5000 HS-1, and that is it has a Find My Phone feature. So you can actually press a button on your watch and if you have that Bluetooth connection activated and present full time, it'll make your watch ring, it'll make your smartphone ring so you can find it if you've like lost it in the cushions. So that kind of like find my phone feature is kind of a fun option. I would never use it because I don't have an active Bluetooth connection, mainly for privacy concerns. You generally keep the Bluetooth on my phone off, but I understand some people keep their Bluetooth permanently connected, and that's kind of cool to be able to find your phone if you regularly lose it. And I'll say again, this watch is about $100 cheaper. Big benefit, you know, lower price is better, right? So all of the things I just listed, the better display, the clearer screen readings, the increase of world times, the newer watch being lighter and thinner, or it's not actually thinner, the new watch being lighter, the easier to press buttons, the louder alarm, the Bluetooth sync, the modern digital font, the quicker illumination, the Find My Phone feature. These are all functional upgrades to the 5000 HS-1. And I would say that that's the real benefit of the new watch. It's not really an upgrade in anything other than function. It's a functional upgrade, and it's a pretty sizable functional upgrade, I would say. But I will say there actually are a couple aesthetic or beauty upgrades to the BX5600, the newer one. It has actually a couple aesthetics or beauty upgrades over the older 5000U. And that is, the 5000HS-1. It's hard for me to keep these model numbers straight. I know I need to be a watch guy. I need to be like spouting model numbers off left and right. But I'm not like really a watch guy. I don't have dozens and dozens of watches. I just have, generally speaking, one digital daily driver, which is a G-Shock. And so this video is me trying to figure out which one I want to keep full time. I'll be selling the one that I choose not to have at the end of this video. But yeah, the new watch actually has, it's slightly more beautiful in some ways. And the main upgrade I would say in that way is there's just less printed text on the face of the watch. So the old 5000 HS-1 has a bunch of white text on the screen that's really redundant. If you look at the top of the screen, it has that split reset left, light right indication. On the bottom of the screen, it says, receiving and start stop right. This text is probably unnecessary, and I would say it just clutters up the face of this watch in an unnecessary way. The newer watch is a little bit cleaner, which I think is a benefit, and I wish that the older watch had that design. So that is a benefit. It doesn't do that. Mainly, I would say, because you've sort of accepted that this watch has an app that's going to teach you what each of the buttons mean. And the old watch, they try to put that text on the screen just to remind you, like, hey, the start-stop feature of your stopwatch is actually this button right here with a printed text on the face of the watch. But you learn that once, and then it just clutters up the screen from there on out. So I don't think that's actually necessary. And the other small aesthetic upgrade for the new watch is that when you turn on the backlight, it's a progressive light. So it slowly turns on and off in kind of a smooth feature. It doesn't just click on the light. And I would say that sort of progressive lighting and turning on and turning off the backlight is a real, it's a real benefit. It's nice to have. You don't need to have it. Obviously, there's really no benefit to have it, but that kind of gradual turning on and turning off the backlight, I would say, is a benefit. So those two aesthetic upgrades aside, this is the 5600 with its Bluetooth connectivity, with its MIP display. This is a functional upgrade over this classic 5000 HS-1. So now that I've gone through the main benefits of the new GW-BX5600-1A1, the negative display of the 3578 module with Bluetooth, with this beautiful MIP display, why would I ever choose something that's 5 years old over it? So let me go through what I feel are the strengths of the 5-year-older GW-5000HS-1 with a steel case back over the newer watch. And this really has to do first and foremost with the aesthetics of this slightly older watch. It has, in my opinion, a much more pleasing design and aesthetic face of the watch. And I'm going to use an example here. There's a lot of guys in my hometown who drive around sports cars and who like to modify their sports cars to look prettier, look more aesthetically pleasing, right? So a classic example would be somebody who drives around a blacked out sports car. Their sports car from the factory, let's say a Mercedes or a BMW or these kind of fancy sports cars, might have a logo on the front of their car, for instance the little BMW logo, the roundel I think it's called, or the Mercedes roundel, the little Mercedes logo. It's not black, and they'll actually buy a custom Mercedes logo or a custom BMW logo that's black, so that they really black out their entire vehicle. And what they're trying to do is make the presentation of the vehicle more unified, because there is something more pleasing about not having any sort of interruption of color into something's design. And I would say that that's really the benefit of the 5000HS-1 over the newer BX5600-1A1. The older watch has a slightly older watch has a much more unified design. So it is really black on black on black with subtle accents that are not black, versus the newer watch. Yes, it's beautiful, you know, again, fantastic watch, but it has a more interrupted aesthetic, a more interrupted design. Namely, with the tough solar being gray, it's not really black anymore. Whereas on the older, you know, the 5000 HS-1, actually the tough solar is pretty dark, pretty black. The newer one has a gray tough solar, and also the numbers on the screen are quite bright, right? They're not going to, they don't have sort of a subtle darkness to them. They're actually quite bright. And I think this wouldn't be such a feature, but the tough solar being gray, I would say, sort of interrupts the design and the overall aesthetic of the older watch. So this has, like I said, the 5000 HS-1 with a steel case back. Overall is just a black on black watch. This watch is really a black on gray watch. And it would be the equivalent of somebody who, let's say, goes out and has a two-tone car where they have, let's say, a blacked out vehicle but a gray hood or a gray trunk lid or something like that. People often create two-tone vehicles, and that's a little bit of the vibe of the new BX5600-1A1. It's a little bit more of a two-tone, where it's not really a black on black watch, it's a black on gray watch. And maybe you find that cool. I personally find this less aesthetically beautiful than the 5000 HS-1, which is more of a black on black watch. That said, it's not merely a black on black watch. The steel case back, negative display GW-5000 HS-1 has some beautiful accents on it. And I'll say, namely, the digits on the watch are subtle and kind of dark and kind of beautiful. They have less legibility, that's true, but they are actually kind of an amber color. They're not sort of a weird pale digit pixel like the newer one. They have an amber color, and particularly in bright sunshine, they really kind of sparkle in an iridescent kind of way. So those amber iridescent digits, I would say, are more beautiful overall. Now on cloudy days like today, they're not going to shine very much, but in bright sunlight, it's got this iridescent look to it that is really pleasing to the eye. So not only is it a black on black design, but it has a subtle accent. Not just, you know, I would say the gray tough solar on the new watch is not really an accent anymore. It's starting to become like a main color of the face of the watch. The accents on this are much prettier. For example, another accent is the G-Shock protection around the bezel of the 5000 HS-1 has painted letters, versus the new one, it just doesn't have paint inside of those letters. It's just stamped in there, and it doesn't have any paint inside of those. And that's like a nice subtle touch, an accent, which really accentuates that overall black on black vibe. If I, again, want to revert back to the car example, people often have a unified color for their car, and then they'll have something like a colored caliper, a brake caliper, to just add a little pop of color. This is not dominating the car away from its primary color. It's adding an accent to make it more fun and kind of like pop the car a little bit without dominating the overall aesthetic. So I would say the steel case back has that in its design as well. The newer watch just is not as polished as this 5000 HS-1. Not only is the back have this DLC, or they call it diamond-like coating, but even the face of the watch is more polished than the new BX5600-1A1. So it is just an overall a shinier, more beautiful watch. This older, 5-year-old steel case back. On top of that, it has the sub-seconds for the stopwatch. Again, this is not necessary. You don't need this. And this does show the sub-seconds when you stop the timer. But if you're using the timer, to see those digits going very fast on the right side of the watch is really kind of a cool feature. You don't need to have it, but it's just aesthetically pleasing to have those there. And because of the MIP display, they just can't do that. So I would say that's the main benefit of this 5000 HS-1 is it's just overall, it's made with higher quality materials versus the older watch, this newer BX5600-1A1. It just is slightly less quality. It's a lower price point. And so the quality of the materials, the aesthetics are just not as nice. I'll continue on. This has that steel case back, super tough. It's G-Shock to the max, really tough, and this just doesn't have a steel case back. It's got a plastic case with a metal plate on the bottom, but this one is steel all the way around, and it's really nice for that reason. Yes, it's heavier, but you get that real tough kind of steel feel to it. I will talk about the resin bands. I wish they just called them rubber or plastic. I don't know why they do this resin thing. It feels like a sales gimmick to me, but the band on the 5000 is just softer than the band on the 5600-1A1. So these two negative displays. The $330 watch has a slightly softer, more pliable rubber, and the $220 watch, it's just not as pliable, not as soft, not as comfortable. So these are both certainly more soft than the $40 G-Shock I've gotten off Amazon a few years ago, but the $330 one is definitely slightly higher quality. You can just see it in the way, if I hold these watches in the exact same way where I put my thumb, you can see that this watch dips down a little bit more and this watch is a little bit more firm. So it just, you can see how this one is a little bit more rubbery. I would say that's a real benefit because it's going to be slightly more comfortable on your wrist. They both are supposedly, quote unquote mineral glass, but the $330 5000 HS-1, I think, is a harder glass. If I put my finger on it, if I polish it, it feels a little bit more like glass rather than plastic. And this newer BX5600-1A1, it feels like it's more of a plasticky face. So supposedly the website says that both of these are mineral glass, but it feels very clear to me that the 5000 HS-1 has a nicer mineral glass. And again, the price point, the $330 versus the $220, that results in nicer material, and that's certainly the case with the glass in the face of the watch. Finally, you might be surprised to hear this, but the 5000 HS-1, it's got this older module in it, but it actually has a few functions better than the new one. And these are mainly its backlight. Yes, this watch is harder to read because it doesn't have this nice MIP display, but this slightly older technology of LCD has a brighter backlight, a much brighter backlight in the dark than the new one. The new backlight on the BX5600-1A1 just is not very good. It's hazy, it's dark, it works, it works in the dark, you can see it, but it doesn't have high contrast. It is low contrast, meaning the watch numbers, the time numbers are not as distinct from the non-time number part of the screen, versus the display, the backlight in the dark, the turning on the light for the 5000 HS-1 just has a nice, much more contrast between what is the numbers and what's not the numbers on the screen, much brighter, and I think that's a real benefit. So it's actually got a little bit of a better function when it comes to the illumination. Second of all, the older 5000 HS-1 has a battery indicator always present on the screen, so you know if your battery is high, medium, or low. This one only shows if you have a low battery. So let's say you're going on some super long trip, you might remember to charge your watch before you go, but you might not. And this one you can just look down and be reminded, oh yeah, this one is only at medium charge right now. Let me get it up high before I go on some long vacation in some dark area of the world. You know, again, these are kind of edge case examples, but I would really prefer if the newer BX5600-1A1 had a constant battery display on the screen in some small area. I mean, they can put the word Wednesday on the screen fully spelled out, but they can't put a battery display. I think that was not a wise decision. Maybe they're trying to not clutter up this screen or whatever, but it's nice to be able to just look at the watch, know where the battery is, and the older 5000 HS-1 has that battery notification constantly on the screen. Finally, the older 5000 HS-1's battery, fully charged, lasts for 10 months. The newer one has a 6-month battery in it. I don't know if it's because of the Bluetooth module or whatever, but you know, that's a 40% reduction in how long this battery remains charged. Not nothing, right? So this certainly you could go all year round without charging it except for the summer. And this watch, you would have to figure out if, let's say, in your area of the world, the summer is the only time where you're having sun on your wrist, you would have to figure out how to charge it midway through the year in like the middle of the winter. You know, so this really is, the 5000 HS-1 is much more of a set it and forget it watch when it comes to the battery, whereas this new watch, you have to keep an eye on the battery a little bit more. So all in all, okay, here's my conclusion. Having spent so much time with these two watches, thank you for hanging in there. I think we're at like 32 minutes at this point. In my conclusion, after having put the watches on my wrist multiple times throughout the day, looking at them, feeling them out, I'm just going to resell this BX5600-1A1 with the Bluetooth. Beautiful watch. If you don't have a G-Shock at all and you're looking for a negative display, you'll be very pleased if you buy this newer watch. But I think for when it comes to the ultimate, most beautiful G-Shock you can buy, most functional G-Shock you can buy, most set it and forget it digital watch available on planet Earth, there's really nothing that beats the GW-5000HS-1 with the steel case back. Yes, it's got some weaknesses. So for example, it's a heavier watch, but I would say this is made up for the fact that it's got a more pliable rubber for the strap. So it kind of makes up for the fact that it's less comfortable here, more comfortable here, right? So it kind of balances itself out. Similarly, it's got a darker display, harder to read, but it also has a brighter display in the dark. So even though this new MIP display is certainly brighter and easier to read regularly, it actually is harder to read in the dark when it's backlit. So these watches are actually on a functional level closer than many people really believe. And considering that their functions are, certainly the new watch is more functional. It's a better functional watch, but not by much. And so when you consider the steel case back of the design, the more glass-like feel for the front of the screen, the softer rubber for this what's going on for the strap. Overall, the materials of the 5000 HS-1 with the negative display, yes, it's a little harder to read during the day, but this is just a more pleasing watch to have on my wrist. I love my G-Shock GW-5000HS-1 negative display with the steel case back. This is a beautiful watch. They're both beautiful, but this is a more beautiful watch. This is the most beautiful, most elegant GW G-Shock in the world, I really think. It almost feels like wearing a tuxedo of a G-Shock. It's just a fantastic watch. For $330, for this incredible quality to be on your wrist, this is what I'm going to rest at. So anyway, that's my display. This video was made for nerds. I mean, who's going to hang in here for a half-an-hour video comparing and contrasting two negative displays? But I was looking for this video on the internet and I couldn't find it, so I thought I'd make it for you guys. If you're interested in buying the new BX5600-1A1, I'll put the link for where to buy it in the description, which is an affiliate link. Feel free to buy it there. But overall, if I had to, choose one watch, and that's exactly what I'm going to do, I'm still going to wear this 2021 watch with the slightly older module because it's just a pleasing, beautiful watch to have on my wrist that I really love. So anyway, thanks for watching.